I was a handler, a personal assistant to a warlock until the day I decided to quit and I almost lost my life. Story time. Hi TikTok, it's your girl Rosie. I am back with another story time. As y'all know, my platform's a platform where I tell you guys stories about witchcraft, tell you guys about the consequences that come with it, but I also highlight the mercy, the grace, and the love of our God. Alright, y'all, let me tell you guys something. This story blew my mind, and it's kind of crazy because there is so much details and so much knowledge that a lot of you guys are going to learn from this story. Part of me feels like I need to do a part two, but as y'all know, I am not the content creator that does part twos. I tell a story, a whole story, but there is so much to this story, so just pay attention, okay? Anywho, and I'm sorry, y'all. When I tell stories, I take a week off to be in prayer, and then also I've been moving. So, anywho, story time. Basic gentleman. We're gonna call that gentleman Danny. Danny Boy. Okay. So, like I was saying, Danny Boy was raised in a family that was super, super poor. No joke, him and his siblings would get to a certain grade and they would have to drop out of school. His parents had that mindset of, okay, you've reached to this grade, I can't afford it anymore. Let your younger sibling be able to go to school as well. And it was so bad that at one point all the kids had to work. The ladies had to be house helpers, maids, work in hotels, while the gentlemen worked in farms. Some of the kids would go out in markets and sell potatoes, tomatoes, the whole 9 yard. And overall, the family was content with their life, except Danny Boy. Danny Boy hated his life. He hated the fact that they had to struggle to eat. He hated the fact that even getting water was a problem. Even getting shoes was a problem. He hated the fact that his clothes had holes. He hated the fact that people laughed at him. He hated the fact that his peers were able to go to school while he was out in the market selling candies or whatever. Like I stated, he hated the fact that his peers were able to go to school while he had to struggle. And he would always tell his family, his parents especially, that he thinks that they were cursed. He was like, there's no way that we're all working and still struggling this bad. Anyways, years down the line, he's still working the market, trying to make ends meet to help his family, when he runs across one of his friends that he went to school with years before. He sees his friend has a car, his friend looks good, flashy, blingy, the whole 9 yard. His friend comes to him, they start talking, and he's a little embarrassed. He talks about how he hated that his friend had to see him like that. His friend tells him, you know what, I want to buy all your potatoes, all your vegetables from you, so you can take the rest of the day off, and me and you can go and catch up and talk. When they were younger, him and that guy were super, super close. As they sit down and talk, he's asking his friend, like, how are you able to make this much money? Like, what are you doing? Like, can you put me on? At first, his friend was like, you know what, Danny, you come from a good family. I don't think that you want to join what I'm doing. He's telling his friend, why not? What do you do? Are you a hustler? Are you a sakawa? Like, sakawa, as I told you guys, they're the cameras. Put the S in the beginning. They're the ones that call people and they're like, hey, I'm a prince from freaking Nigeria. I have some moolah waiting for you. Those are the Sakawa boys. So he's asking his friend a bunch of questions, and his friend is like, no, I don't do none of that. His friend tells him, look, Danny boy, I just don't think that this is for you. You come from a good family, and I just think that eventually you'll be able to make money. Danny's a little upset that his friend won't put him on, because mind you, this is the same friend that struggled with Danny Boy when they were younger, but at least, his friend would look out for Danny, and Danny's thinking like, why won't you tell me how you're making your money? Anyways, Danny leaves a little upset. A couple weeks down the line, Danny sees that friend again. At that point, Danny corners that friend and he tells his friend, whatever you're doing, I am in. Put me in. His friend tells him again, Danny boy, you come from a good family. Because his friend didn't come from a good family. So like I was saying, his friend did not come from a good family. His friend is being raised by the grandmother. The parents left him when they were younger. They left him in the village and they went to live their life. And so his grandparents were always struggling. That's why his friend ended up doing what he was doing. Anyway, Danny Boy tells him, I don't care what you think about how good my family is. I want to be a part of this. I am tired of struggling. I'm tired of not having food. We're just tired. I think that you need to help me. At this point, his friend tells him, look, all right, I've tried talk you out of it. You won't listen. I'll come pick you up this weekend. Danny Boy's excited, tells him thank you. Oh, my nose itchy. Tells him thank you. That weekend, he comes to Danny's boy's house, picks him up, and they go on the drive. So as they're sitting in the car, Danny Boy's asking him questions, excited, like, what do you do? Can you give me a little hint? Like, do you do this? Are you working for a rich man? Like, da 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 da. Like, he's like, I don't care what it is, I'm in, but at least give me a hint. Danny Boy is like, what I'm doing is not what you want to do. He's like, yeah, the money's amazing. He said, but the things I've seen are things that haunt me in my dreams. Danny's like, it's that bad? He's like, yep, it is. He said, but you have insisted, and just know that once you take this road, you can't turn back. Danny Boy's like, boy, whatever, you look like you're doing good, so I'm in. They arrive at this shrine. When they get there, Danny Boy looks at his friend and he says, what are we doing here? His friend tells him, you wanted to come and find out how I'm making money? Follow me. They go into the shrine. The old man looks at Danny Boy and looks at his friend. He tells his friend, what a surprise to see you. What are you doing here? His friend tells him, this is my friend Danny. We went to school together when we were younger, and we both bonded at the fact that we were broke, and I want you to be able to help him the way you helped me. Anyways, the old man tells Danny Boy, are you ready? Danny Boy's like, ready for what? He tells Danny Boy that, just know that if you're going to take this road, there's no coming back. He sits down and tells Danny that he can either do witchcraft in order to make money. He would have to do sacrifices. He gives him like a bunch of stuff that he can do. Danny Boy's like, oh, no, 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 no. I'm not doing that. He's like, I don't need that money that bad. But because witchcraft, because warlocks, I don't care what nobody says, warlocks unknowingly work with demonic spirits. And because the warlock, not knowing, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, not knowing, that he's trying to suck this boy in, he tells him, he's like, all right, he said, since you said you're struggling that bad, he said, how about I hire you as a handler? Danny Boy says, a handler to do what? He says, well, when I need chickens. So he tells Danny Boy, when I need chickens, when I need for you to go hunt a cow, or to go buy me some recipes, like some herbs, or go to the farm and get whatever, your job will be to get those for me. And it always starts small. Danny Boy's like, all right, well, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'm cool with that. That's all. He's like, that's all. But he tells Danny Boy, but in order for you to work for me, he said, I need to have you protected. Danny tells him, why do I need to be protected? He says, because he said, working in this shrine, he said, you will encounter people that have a lot of like torment. He's like, I'm a white witch. I'm a white warlock. My job is to heal people and help people. So like I was saying, he's explaining to Danny the reasons why Danny needs to be protected. He reminds him that you're going to come across a lot of people that are dealing with a lot of spiritual attacks, and people that are going to need healing, and I don't want whatever they have to jump on you. So I need to protect you, which means you have to be under the protection of my spirit guides. See how the enemy tricks and lies to people? Danny, not knowing that this was just a way for him to make a covenant, Danny thinks about it. He says, you know what, there's no harm. I am going to be working here, so let me go ahead and get myself protected. Danny allows him to do his witchcraft on him, and he tells Danny, all right, he says, come in a couple days, and I'm going to have a list for you for the things I need you to get. So just like anything else, the list always starts small. It'd be like a chicken, a goat, a lamb, and eventually it gets bigger. The biggest thing after seeing that warlock, the biggest thing that Danny Boy started to realize that he started having a spirit of fear, and he started feeling like he was always being watched. He can be at home alone taking a shower, and he just feels like there's a presence there that is not a good presence. And another thing is, he can be in a whole different city with his family. He'll get a phone call from the warlock like, hey, what are you doing in this city? And he'll be like, how do you know that I'm here? This is not my day to work. And the warlock will be like, oh yeah, my spirit guides told me. I just want to let you know that I'm always watching you, and it's a good thing because I'm protecting you. Danny thought it was weird, but he would never argue about it. And at this point, Danny had told his family that he's working for a farmer that is paying him a lot of money. becoming stuff like, hey, I need you to go to the gravesite and dig up a fresh body, and we need the skull of that body. Danny at first threw a fit, told the warlock, I'm not doing that. You know, that is not good. I do not want to mess with somebody's resting place, blah, blah, blah. But the warlock was like, hey, they're already gone. Their spirit is elsewhere. We just need the physical body. And would pay Danny a lot more money, 2, 3 times the amount for him to do that. As uncomfortable as Danny was, Danny would do it. It continues being weird. Now, at this point, Danny in his head, he thinks that he's just a handler. He doesn't do anything else but, gets the herbs that he needs, the animals that he needs. That's his job, nothing else. He doesn't realize that at this point, he's made a covenant with these demonic beings. So the warlock starts inviting him to the meetings that they have. And Danny doesn't understand why, but the warlock's like, oh, the reason I need you there is that when we're having these meetings and you hear about stuff that we need, you can be able to make a list for it because I'm getting old. I have a problem with forgetting stuff. You can be able to write this stuff down and you'll know what to purchase. So Danny would go to these meetings, and here's what blows my mind, but I believe it 100%. Danny said the amount of prophets, pastors, big pastors that are well known, that you guys watch every Sunday nights, the churches that you go to. He said all those pastors. He's like, if I am to name the list of pastors and major prophets, like I was saying, Danny talked about the amount of pastors and prophets that were there to where it made him start hating and having a distrust for the church. But the crazy thing is, y'all buckle up and listen to this. He said that the rituals that these pastors and prophets practiced, that these warlocks told them to do, was insane. Y'all, listen to this. He said he would see a lot of pastors and prophets come in that have been there before. If they bring a new pastor or prophet that wants to have power, healing power, prophecy power, yada, 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 that they would come in, they would do a bath for them, and then after that, there's certain things I can't say on this app. So y'all gonna have to use your imagination. That the warlocks, so it would be the guys working for and other warlocks from around that area. They would be like the head honchos on the table. Anyways, so like I was saying, these prophets, pastors would come in, they would bring somebody else. That person would stay with those warlocks for 3 days. The other pastors and prophets that have already been there would leave after their meeting. And the new pastor, new prophet that's wanting powers, would stay for 3 days with these warlocks and would basically become their female, if you know what I mean. He said that he's seen a lot of pastors, a lot of prophets, and a lot of them get, I gotta be careful what I say. Just know that for those 3 days, the pastor and a prophet belonged to those warlocks, and they would do very inappropriate things. That was phase 1. And phase 2 was the warlock would send him to go find a goat. So the goat's horns had to be, so you have goats that have the horns that curve. The goat's horns had to be sticking up. And he talked about how everything that he was required to bring had a purpose. There was a reason why that needed to happen when the sacrifice was being done. And I'll explain all that to you at the end. Anyways, that was phase 2. Phase 3 was when these pastors and warlock were supposed to go and find ladies, young ladies, that were V's to go do the hanky-panky. And he said, and these pastors and prophets would always come back, would pay a lot of money. This continued for the longest. So at this point, Danny Boy is not happy about what's going on, and the warlock knows it. The warlock knows that Danny Boy was raised right. Now, Danny Boy's parents were Catholic. They went to church when they did. I wouldn't say that they were like straight up like prayerful, but they believed in God. Anyway, so when it came to like the dirty jobs, the warlock would never send Danny Boy because he knows that Danny Boy wants his hands clean. But that doesn't mean that Danny Boy hadn't heard from the other guys or hadn't seen a lot of BLOOT around, hadn't seen a lot of like people missing, and he had seen a lot of things. Anywho, here's what made Danny Boy quit doing what he did. So one day, Danny Boy is sent by the Warlock to go get a list of things that is needed for the ritual they were going to practice at 12 a.m. that night. Danny Boy goes to get it, and the Warlock, thinking that this is a long list, it's going to take him a while. He'll have to go to different little cities to get what we need. He's going to have to leave his village. Well, Danny Boy at this point, he's become a pro at doing his job, so he knows where to go. He has the hookups to get what he needs to get. He's back early from doing his shopping for the Warlock. When he arrives, he gets in and he sees, I gotta be very careful about how I see certain things. He sees a young child. Oh, can I say that? He sees a young kid being bad things happening. Ah man, I don't want this video to get flagged. But anyways, he sees the most disgusting things happen to that person, to that precious soul. And as they're doing whatever they're doing, there is BLOOT all over these people's shirts and stuff like that. And when they're done, they use the liquid in her body to do a ritual. Danny was outside hearing all this, hearing the screams, the wails from this precious soul. That was the day when these people left. After they left with the power that they needed, blah, blah, blah. Danny was so angry because Danny has siblings. That's the first day that Danny ever yelled at the Warlock. He went off on the Warlock. He told the Warlock. So, like I was saying, he told the Warlock off, called him everything but a child of God. The Warlock is trying to calm him down. He's telling the Warlock, how could you? How could you do that? Yada, 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 yada. That's when he tells the Warlock, I'm done. I'm done. I don't want to be a part of this. That's when the Warlock looks at him and says, what do you mean you're done? The Warlock is like, Daddy Boy's like, I'm done. He said, I didn't sign up for this. I thought that, a little animal here, herbs, but this is too far. The Warlock looks at him and says, you can't be done. He says, me and you have a covenant. If you have a covenant with me, you have a covenant with my spirits. You have a covenant with the deities I worship. He said, you're a part of us now. Danny looks at him straight up and he says, I'm done. And Danny walks away. When Danny gets home, he's super, super emotional from what he's seen. He doesn't know who that little girl is, but he for sure knows that it's not a little girl he's seen in that village. But anyways, he goes home, super emotion. His parents. So like I was saying, he goes home that evening. His mom's like, why are you home so early? He tells his mom that the farmer doesn't need any more help, that the job is done. He tells his mom he's going to look for another job and that he's kind of happy that he was able to save the money he made, which was a lot of money. Anyways, that night, Danny goes to bed. As he's sleeping around the witching hours, mind you, it's the village, so there's no windows, right? There's like on the mud house that they have, there's like a hole where the window is, and there's a like a kitambara. Kitambara is a think of it just like a bed sheet, right? Like African material that they put on the window. So as he's laying down at witching hours, right, all of a sudden he has sleep paralysis. He cannot move, and he feels this cold breeze come into that window, that where that kitambara, where that bed sheet is on that window side. He sees where like the wind comes through and the kitambara, the bed sheet kind of like opens up, and as he's frozen in sleep paralysis, he sees that wind that comes in and it turns into people. He starts seeing lots of people around his bed. He can't move, he can't scream, he can't say anything. Then the last person he saw was the Warlock. When he saw the Warlock told him, who told you, who gave you permission to leave? You are a part of us now. And since you want to leave, that means, oh Lord, you want to leave. The only way sees his little sister run in the room. And when his sister runs in the room, the sleep paralysis breaks off. He's able to get up and is gasping for air. His little sister says, I don't know what woke me up, but I woke up because I heard you coughing and it sounded like you were choking. At that point, he's like screaming and hyperventilating and crying. And that's when his parents come in the room and his parents are like, What's wrong? What's wrong? Are you okay? He tells his parents, I'm fine. I just had a very horrible dream. His parents are like, All right, let's go back to sleep. They go back to sleep. The next day, the whole day, where he was going to find a job, every place that he went, he kept feeling like, or not kept feeling, he kept seeing that warlock. He can be in a whole city, and from a distance he'll see that warlock. When he gets closer, it's not him. Every corner he felt like that warlock was watching him. He had a horrible day. The So like I was saying, every job he tried to go and apply to, there was a reason why they wouldn't hire him. Either he was asking for too much or he was underqualified. Even at some point, the people would just see him and they would say, No, we don't want to hire you. He wouldn't understand why. Anyways, throughout the day, he's still looking for a job, while he keeps seeing this warlock at every spot, every corner. He feels like like he's seeing the warlock. Anyways, the last spot that he stops at, he goes into this lady's what's the word? Like a store, like what's that? Uh, there's a word for it. Mexicans, not Mexicans. A bodega, like an African bodega. He goes into that bodega and he starts talking to the lady. As he's talking to the lady's just staring at him, and she's kind of confused. She's looking at him up and down, and he's telling the lady how he's done this, he's done that. He wants to help her, and at this point he's even gone down on his asking price for the job. And that's when the lady tells him, "Sit down, my son." The Danny boy sits down. He starts telling him, "Where are you from?" Danny boy says, "Oh, I live." He's giving her directions, yada yada yada. And he tells Danny boy, he says, "My son, you need to go get a cleansing." Danny boy is like, and this lady's an older lady. Danny boy's like, "What do you mean?" He tells Danny boy, "You have a very dark spirit that is following you." Danny boy looks at her and says, "You can see him too?" And the lady says, "Yes, I can." He says, "I don't know what you did. I don't know what you're into. I can't hire you. I'm not looking for a worker right now, but you need to go get this cleansing. And this spirit is a dark, malevolent, like a dark, horrible spirit, and it means you harm." He says, "You need to go get a cleansing," which again, people need to stop telling people to go get cleansing. Go to Jesus. That's who you need to go to. Go to the creator of these entities. Anyways, Danny boy goes back home a little sad that he wasn't able to find a job. His mom and him are talking. He hasn't really said nothing to his parents. That night, he goes to sleep. As he goes to sleep, all of a sudden, he's awoken by his sister jumping over him. And when he gets up, his sister has a sharp object that you see in your kitchen that you used to cut potatoes, to cut stuff with. She has that sharp object and she's trying to get him with it. And she's got his hand and some other places. And he's screaming. That's when Danny Boy's mom, dad, the rest of the siblings run into his room and they yank the sister off of him. And when they yank the sister off of him, I was saying, as they're grabbing the little sister off of him, the parents are yelling at the little sister, "What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" The sister's in a trance and she keeps repeating this over and over again. "You made a covenant with us. You made a covenant with us. And the only way that you'll be able to get out of this covenant is if you're in the ground." And she kept repeating that over and over and over and over again. At this point, Danny Boy is like standing up. Blood is dripping from his arm where he was able to protect himself. And the sister's just repeating that over and over and over again. And just like it started, it all ended. The sister, looked around like, what's going on? She sees the sharp object that she was holding. She drops it and she starts crying. And the mother is telling the sister, "What did you do? What's going on?" The sister's like, "I don't know." The sister said, "I was sleeping and all I know is I felt a cold breeze and I can't remember anything else." At that point, Danny Boy starts crying. go to the living room. Danny Boy starts telling the whole family what job he was doing. As he's telling this to them, Mother is screaming, "Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why would you invite this entity in our house? Why would you put us at risk? Blah, blah, blah. Why are you bringing dirty money into our home?" Like she's literally going off on Danny Boy. And Danny Boy tells the mom the reason why he left about the situation with the little girl. And he tells the mom that when he left, when he told the old man that he was done, that the old man told him the only way he would be done was if he was in the ground. You know, the mother is telling the little boy, I mean, Danny Boy, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay, we're gonna figure it out. He tells Danny Boy, I know a pastor down here, starts giving Danny Boy the description of that pastor. Danny Boy tells his mom, "You don't understand." He said a lot of these pastors were at all these meetings that I was at. He tells the mom, he's like, "I don't trust none of these pastors." He's like, going to them is basically sealing my life. You know, he's like, "I'm not going to any of them." At this point, the mother realizes that this is spiritual warfare, that they're coming after his boy. Mama, who is a Catholic, doesn't really pray, does what is it called, the rosemary? Is that what they call it? I'm not a Catholic, I don't know. She does her, I don't know what they call it, but she doesn't know what to do. The mother tells Danny Boy, "I will figure it out, I'll figure it out." The next day, the mother is going from neighbor to neighbor to neighbor, talking to them, saying, "Hey, can you give information of like pastors that you know that deal with like," she doesn't go into too much details, that deal with like, you know, witchcraft and blah, blah, blah. And a few of the neighbors call around in the city